What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a Sunday edition of The Drive with Q. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones. We are coming at you on our YouTube channel, Rich Q on Q. And also, we'd like to welcome in our great partnership with the new CSN Critical Sports Network as we welcome in our guy, our NFL insider, Lloyd Vance, host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football. You hear him on my YouTube channel, you hear him on BYP, you hear him on The Drive with Q on this Sunday. We had to catch our breath over the last week or so because the NFL free agent signing period has just been absolutely crazy. And Lloyd, it starts and it ends at the end of the day with everything that's going on with the quarterback position, right? So we know that domino, how that domino drops, and it started again with Sam Darnold to Seattle, Geno Smith to the Raiders, Justin Fields to the Jets, Daniel Jones to the Colts. I mean, we can keep going on and on and on. But Slinging Sammy, he got paid. We'll start with Sam Darnold, and I thought he was able to cash in. I know people were getting on him for that playoff loss and the failure, but at the end of the day, listen, I still think he can play. I think he's a very good quarterback. We'll get to some of these other veterans that are out there, but when you see those numbers, when you break it down at the end of the day, Darnold to that Seattle offense, I mean, some people may think it's a, lateral scheme transition, but we saw that Seattle was able to kind of have that reclamation project with Geno Smith, and we'll get to him with the Raiders in a moment. But how about Darnold to Seattle?
Yeah, Darnold was interesting, Q, because you and I had talked all along that as he had resurrected his career and had such a great season in Minnesota. Unfortunately, as you were saying, the playoff game, he had those turnovers and did not play his best. And everybody's like, oh, he's seeing ghosts again. But Seattle believed in him. And McDonald and the crew up there, John Schneider, the general manager, they decided he was their guy they wanted to move forward with, a little younger than Geno Smith. They sent Geno Smith to Las Vegas and give Darnold a 3-year, $110.5 million contract, 55 million
Yep.
guaranteed. So, he has resurrected his career and he wants to follow that trek that Baker Mayfield has had in terms of going down to Tampa and cleaning some things up because he had many stops before that too. So Darnold, I think it's in a good landing spot for him. Obviously, they have Kenneth Walker, Jackson Smith and Jigma's coming on, and now they're bringing over Cooper Kupp from the Rams. So I think he'll have his opportunities. That division's kind of wide open now because we've seen the Niners getting broken apart.
Yeah, it's a good point you just brought up on the wide receivers, right? Because they needed to add at least two or three more offensive linemen. You add another starter to replace DK Metcalf. In comes Cooper Kupp, who a lot of people believe has a lot of gas left in the tank. And I think if they build the offense around Darnold, he can have the same type of success that he had in Minnesota, where he threw 35 touchdown passes last season. And then their former quarterback, Geno Smith, goes to the Raiders. Look, I guess the question is, can the Raiders win with Smith? Are they going to open it up? Is there going to be a lot of play action passing? Now you have a new OC in Chip Kelly. They missed out last year on the quarterback draft class. Again, maybe you get can you get someone, at number six? Can you get a wideout? Do they go line? Do they even reach for a young quarterback? I don't know. I mean, I don't know if this move keeps them from drafting a quarterback. But Geno Smith, we know he can sling it. He resurrected his career with Seattle, and now he's with the Raiders.
Now, interesting movement there by the Raiders. They brought in a new staff there in terms of the general manager and the coach and uh, with Pete Carroll and they wanted to go in a new direction. Now, Carroll did have some experience with Geno Smith, brings him in for a third round pick in 2025. And in his early 30s, he still has some gas left in the tank. I think when it comes time for the draft, they're going to look at best player available. They do have Bowers and some other young players to kind of build around. Being at the sixth spot, that's a good spot for them. And I expect them to kind of go offensive line, maybe help out that defense in the secondary because they lost some guys. Spillane left. They're one of their linebackers. So um, definitely they're going to look at a variety of things. And the thing is, we always look divisionally first. And the
Right.
Raiders, it's tough because you had three teams in that division make the playoffs, Kansas City, the Chargers, and Denver had that surprise season with Bo Nix. And um, it's going to be interesting. But the Raiders, yeah, I think it's a good chance for them to rebuild. And Pete Carroll, even at his age, he's bringing some energy into the room.
So now you have a couple cast offs, right? Daniel Jones to Indianapolis, Justin Fields to the Jets. Jets bring over a new OC. That was part of that Lions coaching staff. I think Tanner Inglestrand, who ran pretty creative offense. So you got a young quarterback. He's a mobile quarterback. You got some playmakers as well. I still think they can draft a quarterback. And then you look at Daniel Jones trying to revitalize his career with Indianapolis. And I'll tell you this, I know it didn't pan out in New York, and I know he was backup with Minnesota. I think right now he's going to push Anthony Richardson out of that starting job. I really do. I mean, you got the friendly confines of that stadium. Daniel Jones is now finally healthy. He can run around a little bit. He's very mobile. He's agile. He can throw it down the field. The line, it's a question mark because Anthony Richardson's also been banged up and running for his life. But I'm telling you right now, I think if you sprinkle on some quarterback runs, you distribute the ball in that Steichen run pass offense, I think Daniel Jones might have an opportunity to thrive. So start with Justin Fields. Is he the franchise quarterback for the Jets going forward?
Yes, they brought him in. Aaron Glenn, he wants to go in a new direction. They brought a new GM in as well, and the Jets, they're looking for a spark. And I think Garrett Wilson kind of stepped up to the bat for his college quarterback from Ohio State and said, bring in Justin Fields, give him an opportunity. So the Jets give him a 2-year deal, $40 million, 30 guaranteed, and it's a nice solid contract for him. And I think it's a new beginning. He played well for the Steelers, obviously his inconsistency in terms of his completion percentage. You want that a
Sure.
little higher, but he's a dynamic guy, and that's what they're really looking for with the Jets. They're going to look for somebody to run those read options and make some plays with the running backs that they have there. Get the ball to Wilson, and they got rid of all those old Packers, so it's their opportunity to kind of rebuild and. They're going to want to protect the football and let that defense do their thing. So it's going to be interesting to see how Fields fits there.
Yeah, Pittsburgh doesn't have a quarterback. And then you got Daniel Jones now, as we mentioned, with the Colts. I mean, look, he's fighting for his career. He's banked a substantial amount of money, but he doesn't want to fall in that Pickett Wilson kind of Jimmy G, category, if you will. Those guys just going from team to team to team to team to team. Mac Jones in San Francisco. Do you think in Steichen's offense, Daniel Jones has an opportunity to flourish? And do you think he could supplant Anthony Richardson as that starter?
I definitely think he's going to have opportunities. Some guys that I talked to around the league were saying this training camp's going to be kind of an open competition for Anthony Richardson. I know they went and drafted him high a couple years ago, but the injuries, his inability to have that completion percentage that you'd like, he's completing only a little bit over 50% of his passes. And they want somebody to come in there and push him. And what you have in Daniel Jones is you have a true professional. You have a guy coming over from the Giants. Yeah, he's had an up and down career, and he had that brief stop with the Vikings. But I think it's Steichen's offense. It fit to him. He's going to run the read option. He runs very well. A lot of people forget that he's a very mobile quarterback. Hits out on the edge. He'll be able to do that with Taylor, and then get the ball out of his hands to Pittman and the rest of those receivers. So I think it's a good fit for him, and it's going to be interesting to see. Richardson has had these injuries, and if he leaves the door open just a crack, I think Daniel Jones will be the starter for them.
Yeah, it's a great point. Sunday edition of The Drive with Q. Rich Quinones here. You can follow me on social media at Rich Q on Q. That's on X and IG. Lloyd Vance at Lloyd Vance on X as well. YouTube channel Rich Q on Q. We're adding more content. As I mentioned, we'll do BYP later on in the week. We'll kind of break down more of the NFC East. We'll do that probably midweek, and we'll also update some of the odds. And then you got two quarterbacks out there, Aaron Rodgers and of course Russell Wilson. I joked with you, it's just fitting either Aaron Rodgers is going to go to the Giants or Minnesota. And you're waiting that waiting game right now. And I think what the Giants are doing is they're playing with fire because this is what other teams in the past have done with Aaron Rodgers. It also tells me that with all the movement from the quarterback and some of these retread quarterbacks, what stands out is that the quarterback class coming out in April in the draft, it's not alluring. It's not appealing. And that's why some of these teams are scrambling now for the quarterbacks that are out there, i.e. a Rodgers, i.e. a Russell Wilson. Obviously, Russell Wilson's not going to go back to Pittsburgh, so it's either going to be the Giants or Minnesota. Aaron Rodgers to Minnesota. I joked with you, I think, a couple months ago in that regard. Right now, best landing spot, best fit for Aaron Rodgers if we look at those three teams, one, two, and three, Minnesota, Pittsburgh, and the Giants.
Interesting because, yeah, we've talked and said, okay, whose team is he going to screw up now?
Right.
And unfortunately for you as a Giants fan, I'm hearing they're a strong contender to grab him because they think they can revitalize his career, and the NFC is still kind of open in the latter portion after the division leaders, and he may get that opportunity. So, I'd say right now it's probably Giants, and then I'll go with the Steelers because the Steelers, Mike Tomlin says, okay, a veteran quarterback that's won a Super Bowl. All he needs to really do is protect the football, kind of like what Russell Wilson did this season. Hopefully, he'll finish this season stronger than Wilson did, and then lay the ball in the hands in terms of their defense and their running games.
So, real quick on Rodgers to the Giants, because it just they're such in a precarious position right now, right? Because if you're waiting past the draft, you're in trouble. Like, think about that. So if one and two is not there, like apparently they're not going to try to trade down for the number one draft pick. Those are the reports that are coming out, even as early as Sunday afternoon. So the third best option, because again, if Minnesota and Pittsburgh doesn't work out and they try to get Aaron Rodgers, that's one thing. But now if the Giants are sitting, playing the waiting game, and it's April and it's time for the draft, do you pass on a quarterback, even though you know you need a quarterback going forward? If it doesn't pan out, it doesn't pan out. Or are you waiting for Aaron Rodgers? Or are you waiting for the other shoe to drop? Like I feel it's like the chicken or egg. What's going to come first? Because the last thing they want to do is be left standing there with nothing, and then your hands forced come the draft, and you take a quarterback, whether it's Sanders or Ward, and maybe you're not high on him. And I don't think Aaron Rodgers is the answer. You know how I feel. I think Aaron Rodgers is old. He's breaking down. He's not the same quarterback he once was. I also think Aaron Rodgers has a tendency to blow up the locker room. He did it leaving Green Bay. He obviously did it with the New York Jets. And I don't know if the Giants are going to decide that, hey, we're just going to, kowtow and bow down to Aaron Rodgers. I don't think it's going to be a good fit. So I feel as though they need to just move past it and decide what they're going to do in the draft.
If the Giants are playing their cards right, they got to look to the future too. And excuse me, Dayball and Joe Shane, the coach, general manager, they are in a hot seat going into this
Yep.
season. So they shouldn't wait on Aaron Rodgers and for him to decide to come out of his cave and decide where he's going to go and all that stuff. They got to move towards the future, build with younger players. I know a lot of these teams, as we were talking about earlier, like a veteran quarterback because you just don't know the development cycle of some of these young guys. But at the number three position, maybe they'll see if Fedor Sanders drops them. Maybe they'll give an opportunity to him. I think Cam Ward is kind of locked in at number one going to the Titans, but they can't wait on Rodgers. And also, they shouldn't acquiesce to him. You saw, what
Yes.
Woody
Agree.
Johnson and the Jets were saying, how they gave Rodgers everything he wanted. And at 41, you know, the team is holding the hammer instead of Aaron Rodgers. He should be thanking a team for an opportunity rather than kind of dictating. So I think the Giants will kind of sit back, go into the draft, and then see what happens there. But they're not going to wait on Rodgers. And it may very well be that Pittsburgh, that once that veteran quarterback may be the better landing spot. Getting to the Vikings, I think they're interested in JJ McCarthy, and you know if McCarthy gets healthy mid-season, they're going to want to put him in there,
Yep.
and I just don't think that's a good fit because we know about Rodgers mentoring young quarterbacks how he does not want to do it. So I think it will be, like I said, the Giants will take a look, and if they decide, okay, the draft's the way to go, then Rodgers will fall to the Steelers. But this is something we're definitely going to have to watch.
Yeah, and your guess is as good as mine with Russell Wilson. I mean, it's just a retreading right now, right? I mean, and then you see the quarterbacks that are deserving, again, of some of these contracts. So, again, Josh Allen's tinkering the numbers a little bit, you know, and it's funny because I look at, I don't think these teams are going to try to make a run for the Jordan Loves, the Trevor Lawrences, the Joe Burrows, right? They're not going to try to, there's a buzz that the Giants would have this blockbuster, package for Joe Burrow. I just don't see it happening. And there are quarterbacks that are deserving of these contract extensions. Obviously, not Deshaun Watson, because I think his playing days are absolutely done. But the reason I bring all that up, it leads me to Brock Purdy. We're seeing what the San Francisco 49ers, who are a couple years removed from being a juggernaut in the NFC, making a couple trips to the NFC Championship, to the Super Bowl as well. And now the question is, are they going to pay their quarterback, Brock Purdy? And what they're doing right now, I mean, they're basically stripping down the team. I mean, they are going from a couple years removed from being a really good football team to, as you said, taking a step back, dealing with injuries, only winning 6 games last year, having a boatload of injuries, inconsistent play, and then boom, what happens? They are basically just stripping, stripping, stripping. I mean, I know they released a fullback and then he's again he just re-signed back with them, but this is what happens. Your pay cut, but you look at Ayuk, you look at Samuel, then there's a report you got to get rid of Christian McCaffrey, trade him while he's got some value. Are we going to pay Brock Purdy? I mean, what the hell's going on with the San Francisco 49ers?
Yeah, they're a team, Q, they are setting themselves up to kind of give Purdy that contract. I talked to some folks, they said that's their guy. But as you said, in the past, they have had the highest paid player at about five positions on their team in the NFL. And they loaded up for that Super Bowl run a couple years ago. They didn't get it done against the Chiefs, and now the Bills do. They
Yeah.
ate the big meal and they got to start chopping some fat. And that's why you see one of their good young tackles goes to the Kansas City Chiefs. You see Deebo Samuel getting traded out of there. You talked about Juszczyk getting cut, and then they restructured his contract. Uh, but they still have Bosa there, making one of the highest paid defensive linemen out there. You have Trent Williams, who they're re-signing, uh, even at 36 years old or so. He's still got one of the big contracts in the NFL for offensive linemen. George Kittle, a tight end, McCaffrey. That's going to be a tough thing to trade. That contract. I think eventually they're just going to let him play it out, and this could possibly be his last season there. If he continues with the injury, and so a lot. John Lynch, the GM there, is working with Shanahan, the head coach, and yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they tinker with this thing, and if they can get back in the mix and get back in the playoffs doing it.
If they're not close right now, then they just signed Mac Jones. And if they're really rebuilding, then why don't they try to trade Brock Purdy right now? I mean, if that's the case, I mean, look, it's not like he was a top five draft pick. We all know that. He's a seventh round pick. And again, he totally exceeded expectations. He's a young player, Pro Bowl guy, took the 49ers to the Super Bowl in 2023, had a down year in 2024. But again, their entire team, the entire roster and organization did. If they're really, truly rebuilding and getting rid of a lot of talented players, and now there's thoughts about trading Christian McCaffrey, then why don't you just trade Purdy and then you turn around and you live with Mac Jones and you rebuild and you try to go and draft a quarterback?
That makes sense, but you've got to say, okay, what's the value on the other end? What's another team going to give to them? He
Instead
was
of
a
paying
seventh
him,
round
though,
pick.
right?
Exactly. I don't think he's going to fetch two number ones, what you would think a starting
No.
quarterback in the NFL would get. So, the other side may say, okay, I'll give you a third. Is that enough for a starting quarterback in the NFL? Yes, he's not top 10, but he had some pretty good numbers the last couple of seasons. Obviously, he needs the pieces around him. You saw in 2023, as you were saying, the pieces around him played extremely well, and he was able to push the car, I mean, into the Super Bowl, but he wasn't driving it. So we'll see how it goes with him. I still think they're going to give him a contract. It may be around what Sam Darnold got there. I don't think he's going to get that Josh Allen type of extension that we saw in the past. And they very well may say, you know what, let him play out this season under contract. He's still under contract, and then go from there. They're picking around what I think around 11 or so. So they got to see what kind of falls them in the draft. But yeah, John Lynch and Shanahan, they've definitely said, okay, we're retooling, I wouldn't say blow it up type situation, but they're definitely changing that roster around for the Niners.
Lloyd Vance, kind enough to join us to drive with Q right here, powered by our good friends over at Fresh Roaster Coffee, Played Again Sports and Critical Sports Network. Don't forget, give Lloyd a follow on X as well, at Lloyd Vance. All right, later on in the week, we will dive deep into the NFC East because it has been a friggin' carousel of movement. It's almost as though you think the rich are getting richer, the Eagles are actually getting rid of players, but yet quietly they're banking up some equity and some payroll and some money, and they're making moves and Washington making moves, and Dallas is Dallas, and the Giants are, the fourth of the pack, so to speak. But we definitely look forward to that. And again, we got BYP as well. We'll take a look at some of the odds when we go through the draft. Lloyd and I typically kind of do our mock draft. We have a little fun with that. But it's always great to catch up with our good friend Lloyd Vance. And again, this edition of The Drive with Q, you can check it out on the YouTube channel, Rich Q on Q, powered by our good friends over at Play It Again Sports, fresh roasted coffee, and of course, Critical Sports Network. I always appreciate a couple moments, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on.